The morning sun cast long shadows across Ambassador John Miller's office on Luna Base. The earth hung like a blue jewel in the black sky outside his window. He rubbed his tired eyes and took another sip of coffee. 12 years since humanity had learned they weren't alone in the universe. 10 years since they'd been granted observer status in the Galactic Council. And now this. The message from the Council sat open on his screen, its official seals and markings making it impossible to dismiss as a joke. He read it again, hoping the words might somehow change. The Galactic Council hereby formally requests annual resource contributions from Earth and its colonies, specifically 2,000 metric tons of refined uranium and 5,000 metric tons of titanium, beginning within 90 Earth days. Miller tapped his communication panel. "Get me Secretary General Green. Now." 3 hours later, the emergency meeting of the United Earth Government's Executive Council filled the secure conference room. Secretary General Susan Green stood at the head of the table, her normally calm face tight with worry. "Ambassador Miller has shared the Council's demand with each of you," she said. "Now we need to understand what we're really dealing with." Intelligence Officer Alan Wright stepped forward, activating the room's holographic display. "We've seen this pattern before with other species," he said. His voice was flat, but his eyes showed anger. "The Kalari were approached 5 decades ago with similar demands for rare minerals. When they couldn't meet the quotas, the Council imposed trade restrictions that crippled their economy. Images appeared showing struggling alien cities, their technology appearing to regress over time. The Vecnar tried to negotiate," Wright continued. "They ended up forced to demilitarize completely. Now they depend entirely on Council protection." Another image appeared, showing sleek alien warships being dismantled. "This is simple extortion," said Admiral Richard Hamilton, his fist hitting the table. "They're testing us to see if we'll roll over." Dr. Elaine Foster, who had remained quiet until now, cleared her throat. As Earth's leading expert on alien cultures, her insights carried weight. "I think we're missing something important," she said. "The Council has existed for over 20,000 years. Their technology is far beyond ours. Why would they need our uranium and titanium so badly?" The room fell silent as her question hung in the air. "Maybe they don't need it," Miller suggested slowly. "Maybe this is just about establishing dominance." "No," Foster shook her head. "I studied Council communications for years. There's something different here. These specific resources, I think they're desperate." Linda Powell, the economic minister, looked up from her data tablet. "Whatever their reasons, these demands would be devastating. The uranium they're asking for represents 60% of our annual production. Our energy grid, our colonies on Mars and Europa. They all depend on those resources." Secretary Green stood up straight, her decision visible in her posture before she spoke. "We need more information before we respond. And we need options. All options." She turned to Captain Frank Rodriguez, who stood quietly in the corner of the room. His reputation for unconventional missions had earned him both admirers and critics. "Captain, I'm authorizing a covert mission to Kethnera. You'll assemble a team to gather intelligence directly from the Council's hub world." Rodriguez nodded once, his expression serious. "I know just the people for this job, Madam Secretary." "Be careful," Green warned. "If the Council is truly desperate for these resources, they may be more dangerous than we've assumed." As the meeting ended and officials filed out, Dr. Foster caught up with Ambassador Miller in the hallway. "John, there's something else," she said quietly. "In all my research on the Council races, I've never found evidence that they practice recycling or resource conservation. What if they've simply run out after millennia of wastefulness?" Miller stared at her, the implications sinking in. "Then we're not just facing a test," he said. "We're facing an empire that's beginning to crumble and looking for someone to prop them up." Foster nodded grimly. "And nothing is more dangerous than a dying empire trying to survive." The UES Pathfinder slipped through the darkness of space, its stealth systems making it nearly invisible to standard sensors. Captain Frank Rodriguez stood on the bridge, watching as the massive space station of Kethnera grew larger on the main screen. The hub world of the Galactic Council sparkled with thousands of lights, ships from 17 different species moving around it like bees around a hive. "Status report," Rodriguez said quietly. "Stealth systems at full capacity," replied Lieutenant Olivia Martinez, his tactical officer. "We're registered as a Turellian trading vessel. Their security protocols accepted our fake ID without question." Rodriguez nodded. "Good. Let's hope the rest of our mission goes as smoothly." He had chosen his team carefully. Grace Winters, whose gift for languages had helped her master 12 alien tongues. Kevin Daniels, whose understanding of alien biology had earned him 3 scientific awards. And Olivia Martinez, whose strategic mind could see patterns others missed. "Docking clearance granted," announced Grace from her communication station. "They're directing us to the commercial sector, lower ring." 2 hours later, the team had split up to cover more ground. Grace, wearing a hooded cloak to hide her human features, made her way to a quiet bar known to be frequented by diplomatic staff. Kevin headed to the Public Biological Database Center, while Olivia and Rodriguez set up their secure base in a rented storage unit. Grace sat alone in a dark corner of the bar, listening. Her translator implant worked silently, converting the alien languages around her into English. Most conversations were meaningless, until a tall, blue-skinned Silari diplomat sat at a nearby table with another of his kind. "The humans will comply," the older one said. "They always do. Every young species values their survival over their freedom. This one feels different," the younger one replied. His name was Trenvorith, according to the diplomatic insignia on his robes. "They've expanded quickly. Their adaptability is remarkable. All the more reason to bring them to heel now," the older diplomat grumbled, "before they realize their potential." When the older diplomat left, Grace took her chance. With careful movements, she spilled her drink near Trenvorith's table. "I apologize," she said in perfect Silari. The diplomat's inner eyelids flickered in surprise at hearing his language from a hooded stranger. "You speak well," he said cautiously. "I've studied your people with great respect," Grace replied, "which is why I'm confused by your council's demands to my people." Trenvorith grew very still. "Human," he whispered, "you shouldn't be here." "Neither should your council's demands be on my president's desk," she countered. "Why uranium and titanium? What do you really need them for?" The Xilari looked around nervously, then leaned closer. "Not here. Meet me at storage unit 12B in 1 hour. Not all of us agree with council policy." Meanwhile, Kevin had made a disturbing discovery at the biological archives. He stared at the screen showing humanity's classification. Species: human, Terra. Classification: Level 3 developing species. Threat assessment: moderate. Behavioral profile: highly adaptable, but ultimately docile when faced with superior force. Expected compliance: 94%. Kevin's hand shook with anger as he downloaded the file. The council had already decided how humanity would respond. At the meeting point, Trenvorith showed Grace a restricted database. "The council races have depleted their viable uranium deposits after millennia of use," he explained. "Rather than develop alternatives, they've established a pattern. They find developing species with resources, demand tribute, and keep them submissive for centuries." "Why are you telling me this?" Grace asked. "Because my people were once like yours," he replied sadly. "We paid tribute for 500 years before being admitted to the council. Now we do the same to others. It's a cycle that must end." Back at their base, the team compiled their findings. Rodriguez looked grim as he encoded their report for transmission to Earth. "They expect us to just roll over," Martine said, her voice tight. "Their entire strategy depends on approaching species one at a time, isolating them." "Then we need to change the game," Rodriguez replied. "Earth needs to know what we're really facing, and that the Council isn't as united as they want us to believe." As the Pathfinder silently departed from Kethnara, Rodriguez stared at the massive council station. "They've been playing this game for thousands of years," he said quietly, "but they've never played it with humans before." The United Earth Government Assembly Hall buzzed with tension. 200 representatives from every nation and colony sat in curved rows, their faces serious. On the large screen at the front, Captain Rodriguez's report played, showing evidence of the Council's long history of exploitation. When the video ended, Secretary General Susan Green stood. "Now we know the truth," she said. "The Council doesn't tax new species for fairness. They do it because they've wasted their own resources. They want to make us dependent on them." The room filled with angry voices. Some shouted for immediate military action. Others called for careful diplomacy. Admiral Richard Hamilton, head of Earth's Defense Forces, walked to the center of the room. His uniform was crisp, his gray hair cut short. "I've run the numbers," he said. "Even with our newest ships, we cannot win a direct fight with the Council. They have too many ships and too much experience." Economic Minister Linda Powell spoke next. "If we refuse to pay, they will cut us off from all trade. Our colonies on Mars and Europa would suffer the most. Thousands might die. So we just give in," asked a representative from Africa. "We become their servants forever." The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to pay. No one could agree. Then Dr. William Jones stood up. He was the lead scientist at the Global Innovation Initiative, a man known for thinking differently. He walked slowly to the front, carrying a small metal cube. "We don't need to fight them," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "And we don't need to surrender. We can make their demand meaningless." He placed the cube on the podium. "For the past 5 years, my team has been working on Project Prometheus. It's a new form of fusion energy that doesn't need uranium." Dr. Jones pressed a button. The cube hummed softly and projected a complex diagram. "This reactor can produce 10 times more energy than our best uranium plants, using only hydrogen and special magnetic fields. It's cleaner, safer, and more powerful." The room grew silent as people began to understand. "The Council races are stuck in old thinking," Dr. Jones continued. "They fight over limited resources because they never developed better technology. They don't innovate. They just take from others." Admiral Hamilton studied the design. "How quickly could we build these?" "We have 3 working models already," Jones replied. "With proper funding, we could have hundreds within 6 months." Secretary Green walked forward, her eyes bright with a new idea. "What if we don't just use this to replace our own energy needs?" she asked. "What if we offer this technology to the galaxy?" Dr. Jones smiled. "That's exactly what I was thinking. The Council's power comes from controlling resources. What happens if we make those resources unnecessary?" The debate that followed was intense but focused. By the 3rd day, a plan had formed, bold and risky, but with the potential to change everything. Secretary Green called for a final vote. "We face a critical choice in human history," she said. "Do we pay tribute and accept servitude? Do we fight a war we cannot win? Or do we change the rules of the game entirely?" The vote was unanimous. Earth would not pay tribute. Instead, they would offer something that would shake the foundations of the galaxy. As the meeting ended, Ambassador Miller approached Green. "The Council expects our answer in 2 weeks. They expect us to either pay or beg for more time." Green's face showed determination. "Then we have 2 weeks to prepare something they'll never expect." Admiral Hamilton joined them. "I'll ready the fleet, not for war, but for what comes after. And I'll prepare the diplomatic packages," Miller added. "The other exploited species need to know they have options." Green nodded. "The Council has played this game for thousands of years, but humans have always been good at changing the rules when the game isn't fair." A new energy filled the room as people left with purpose. For the first time since the Council's demand arrived, there was hope. Not just for survival, but for something better. The next 6 months were the busiest in human history. Across Earth and its colonies, people worked with new purpose. Everyone knew what was at stake. Deep inside the Armstrong lunar shipyards, Admiral Hamilton walked alongside Dr. Jones. Before them stood the UES Defiant, Earth's newest and most advanced ship. Workers swarmed around it, adding strange new components that weren't in the original design. "Will she be ready in time?" Hamilton asked, watching as engineers installed the large spherical device in the ship's core. "Just barely," Jones replied. "We've never built a Prometheus reactor this large before, but the tests show it's stable." The Admiral nodded. "And the other modifications?" "The communication array can now broadcast to every known inhabited system simultaneously. The data packets are prepared and ready for distribution." Elsewhere on Luna, Ambassador Miller sat across from representatives of 3 non-council species. The Kalari delegate, a tall insect-like being, clicked her mandibles nervously. "How can we trust that your plan will work?" she asked. "The Council has crushed every resistance for 20,000 years." Miller slid a small device across the table. "This is a working prototype of our Prometheus reactor, small enough to power a city, clean enough to run forever. Study it, test it, then decide if you want to stand with us." The Vecnar representative, his scaled skin reflecting the room's light, picked up the device. "If this works as you claim, it changes everything. But the Council will not give up power easily." "We're counting on that," Miller said with a small smile. "Their resistance will only make our point stronger." On Mars Colony, Olivia Martinez trained teams of intelligence operatives from a hidden facility. Men and women from Earth's best agencies learned new skills for a mission unlike any before. "You won't be fighting," Martinez explained to the room full of agents. "You'll be revealing truth. Each of you will be responsible for distributing information packets to population centers across Council space." A young agent raised his hand. "Won't the Council stop us?" "They'll try," Martinez answered. "That's why you need to move simultaneously, using the pathways we've identified. The Council can stop some of you, but not all of you. And we only need enough people to see the truth." Back on Earth, Susan Green addressed a special United Nations session. Behind her, screens showed construction of Prometheus reactors in factories around the world. "In 3 days, the Council delegation arrives expecting our surrender or our tribute," she said. "Instead, they will find humanity united and ready with a different answer. This is not about one nation or another. This is about our future as a species." In orbit around Earth, a fleet took shape. Not warships ready for battle, but specially modified vessels designed for a different purpose. Each carried Prometheus reactors and communication equipment. They were painted white with blue Earth symbols, not threatening, but impossible to ignore. Dr. Foster spent her days studying Council psychology, preparing for their reaction. "They'll be shocked first," she told Green during a late meeting. "Then angry. The key moment will be when they realize they can't control the narrative anymore." As the deadline approached, Captain Rodriguez took command of the UES Defiant. Its crew was handpicked, the best minds and steadiest hands. Their mission wasn't to fight, but to lead what came after. The night before the Council delegation's arrival, Green stood at the window of her office, looking up at the stars. For thousands of years, humans had looked to the stars with wonder. Now those same stars held danger and opportunity. Her aide entered quietly. "Everything is ready, Madam Secretary. The Prometheus fleet is in position. Ambassador Miller has prepared the formal response. Dr. Jones reports all systems functional." Green nodded. "And our allies? The Kalari and Vecnar are standing by. The Torellians are cautious but ready to join if we succeed." "Good," Green said. "Humanity has faced many turning points in our history. Tomorrow may be the most important one yet." Across the solar system, humans and their few allies made final preparations for a gamble unlike any before. Not with weapons, but with innovation and truth. The clock ticked down to their reply. The Council delegation's ship entered Earth orbit with a show of power. Nearly a kilometer long, the vessel dwarfed Earth's largest ships. Its hull gleamed with strange metals unknown to human science. Smaller escort ships flanked it, their weapons systems clearly visible. Inside the Lunar Diplomatic Center, Secretary General Green watched the ship's approach on the large screen. Her face remained calm, but her hands gripped her chair tightly. "They're hailing us," the communications officer reported. Green nodded. "Put them through." The screen changed to show High Executor Zach Valen of the Drenary, his gray skin and 6 eyes marking him as one of the oldest council races. Behind him stood representatives from 3 other species. "Secretary General," the High Executor said, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into English. "We arrived to formalize the tribute arrangement and establish collection protocols. I trust you have prepared the first shipment as requested." Green's smile was polite but firm. "High Executor, we appreciate your journey to our system. We invite you and your delegation to join us for a formal presentation regarding our response." Zach Valen's top eyes narrowed. Presentation. The Council's requirements were clear. "We expect compliance." "And you will receive our answer in person," Green replied. "We believe it warrants direct discussion." 2 hours later, the Council delegation entered the Grand Hall of the Lunar Diplomatic Center. Human guards stood at attention, their uniforms crisp but their weapons conspicuously absent. The message was clear. This was a peaceful meeting. The Council representatives took their seats at the large table. Ambassador Miller entered with his team, followed by Dr. Jones and Admiral Hamilton. Finally, Secretary Green arrived and took her position at the head of the table. "High Executor, honored representatives," she began. "We have carefully considered your request for uranium and titanium tribute. We understand these resources are vital to your energy needs and industrial requirements." The High Executor relaxed slightly. Like all bullies, he expected eventual submission. However, Green continued, "Earth has chosen a different path." She pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed a rotating model of the Prometheus reactor. "Instead of tribute, we offer partnership. This is the Prometheus Project, a fusion technology that produces clean energy without uranium. It's more efficient, more powerful, and more sustainable than anything currently used in Council space." Dr. Jones stepped forward. "A single reactor this size can power a city of 1 million people indefinitely. It requires only hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe." The Council representatives stared, their expressions showing confusion and disbelief. "We will freely share this technology with every species in galactic space," Green continued. "In exchange, we ask only for fair trade agreements and recognition of human sovereignty." High Executor Zach Valen stood abruptly. "This is not acceptable. The Council has determined the tribute amount. You cannot simply—" "We can," Green interrupted gently. "And we have. But that's not all." She nodded to Ambassador Miller, who activated a second display. "At this moment, vessels carrying Prometheus reactors are departing for key systems throughout the galaxy, including those of the Kalari, Vecnar, and Turellians, species who have also suffered under your tribute demands." Another nod, and Martinez pressed a button on her wrist device. "Additionally, information packets are now being distributed across Council space by our operatives. These packets contain the full technical specifications of the Prometheus technology, along with detailed records of the Council's tribute system and its effects on developing species." The Council representatives erupted in anger. Zach Valen's voice rose above the others. "This is an attack on Council authority. You have no right." "We have every right to share our own technology," Admiral Hamilton said calmly, "just as we have every right to decline your tribute demand." The Palaxian representative, quieter than the others, studied the reactor design with clear interest. "This technology, it's real. It works. It powers this entire facility," Dr. Jones answered. "And soon, it will power worlds across the galaxy." High Executor Zach Valen's face darkened. The Council will not stand for this defiance. There will be consequences. Green's expression remained resolute. There already are consequences, High Executor, but perhaps not the ones you expected. On screens around the room, reports began streaming in from across Council space as the information packets reached their destinations. The galactic status quo had just changed forever. Chaos spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours of the information packet's release, citizens of Council worlds viewed the truth about the tribute system and the new energy technology offered freely by humans. On the Tsilari homeworld, massive crowds gathered outside government buildings. Their normally quiet society erupted in angry protests when they learned how their leaders had hidden resource alternatives while extracting tribute from developing species. In the Grand Council chamber on Kethnera, emergency sessions turned into shouting matches. The 17 Council species, united for millennia, now turned on each other with accusations and blame. Captain Rodriguez, commanding the UES Defiant, received urgent reports from across the galaxy. "Sir, we're tracking Council military vessels mobilizing in 6 different systems," his tactical officer reported. Rodriguez studied the strategic display, his face serious. "Any heading toward Earth?" "Not yet, but 3 battle groups have changed course toward the Kalari system. They may be trying to stop the Prometheus deliveries." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Alert all our vessels. Move to defensive positions, but do not engage unless fired upon. And get me a direct channel to Secretary Green." Back on Luna, the Council delegation meeting had dissolved into chaos. High Executor Zach Valen pounded the table, his translator struggling to keep up with his angry clicks and whistles. "You have violated Council law. This unauthorized technology sharing will destabilize the entire galactic economy. An economy built on exploitation," Green replied calmly. "Your reaction proves our point, High Executor." The Palaxian representative, whose species was newer to the Council, raised a hand. "Perhaps we should consider the human offer. If this technology works as claimed, it could solve energy shortages across our worlds." "Silence," Zach Valen hissed. "The Council decides what technologies are approved for galactic use." "Not anymore," Ambassador Miller said quietly. "That information is already free." For 48 tense hours, the galaxy teetered on the edge of conflict. Council warships took up positions near key systems. Earth's smaller fleet stood ready, their new Prometheus reactors giving them unprecedented power reserves, even if they were outnumbered. Then something unexpected happened. On Kethnera, the Xilari representative stood before the full Council and formally denounced the tribute system. Within hours, the Vontari and Pelnath joined them. "For too long, we have followed practices that go against the founding principles of the Council," the Xilari speaker declared. "We officially recognize the human government's sovereignty and express interest in their energy technology." Council unity fractured. The Drenari and Saurians pushed for immediate military action against Earth, but they faced a new problem. Without unanimous agreement, they could not act with full Council authority. And the revelation of their resource extortion had cost them the moral high ground in galactic opinion. On the 3rd day, Ambassador Miller received a surprising communication from Trenforth, the Xilari diplomat who had first helped Grace Winters. "Ambassador, the Council is splitting apart. 8 species now support opening relations with Earth. The old power structure is crumbling." "And the Drenari?" Miller asked. "Still dangerous," Trenforth replied, "but they no longer speak for the full Council." Meanwhile, the Kalari sent their own announcement to Earth. They had successfully installed the first Prometheus reactor on their homeworld. Their message was broadcast openly across all frequencies. "For the first time in 2 centuries, our capital city has full power. We thank our human friends and declare ourselves ready to join a new alliance of free species." The Vecnar and Turellians quickly followed. Within days, they formally announced a cooperative agreement with humanity, the first step toward a new galactic organization built on mutual development rather than exploitation. Captain Rodriguez watched from the bridge of the Defiant as the news spread. His communications officer, Grace Winters, smiled as she monitored the broadcasts. "It's working," she said. "Not just the technology, but the idea behind it." Rodriguez nodded. "The Council demanded tribute. Instead, we gave the galaxy a gift they couldn't control." The shockwave continued to spread. Council authority, unchallenged for 20,000 years, had been broken not by weapons, but by innovation and truth. 1 year later, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Captain Frank Rodriguez, now Admiral Rodriguez, stood on the observation deck of the UES Defiant II. Beside him were Grace Winters, Kevin Daniels, and Olivia Martinez, all now senior officers. Through the massive viewing window, they watched the final pieces of the new Galactic Cooperative headquarters being assembled in neutral space. The station was unlike anything built before. A massive ring constructed by engineers from 20 different species, powered by Prometheus reactors. Ships from dozens of worlds moved around it, working together. "Did you ever think we'd end up here?" Grace asked, watching a Kalari construction vessel guide a massive panel into place alongside human workers. "Never," Rodriguez admitted. "When we first heard the Council's demands, I thought we'd end up either paying tribute forever or fighting a war we couldn't win." The old Galactic Council had reformed, but not in the way anyone expected. 8 of the original 17 species had broken away to form the new Galactic Cooperative alongside humanity and its allies. The remaining Council hardliners maintained their distance, but had ceased their tribute demands, their power significantly diminished. On the station's main concourse, Secretary General Green walked with Ambassador Miller and Dr. Jones. Representatives from 20 species moved around them, engaged in excited conversation. The atmosphere was one of hope and possibility. "The Tyrellian delegation has approved the Technology Exchange Program," Miller reported. "Their scientists are eager to work with ours on the next generation of Prometheus reactors." Green nodded. "And the former Council worlds?" 3 more have sent observers," Miller replied. "Even the Drenari are quietly asking questions through intermediaries." Dr. Jones smiled as he watched a group of alien children playing with a human child. "This is what I hoped for," he said. "Not just the technology spreading, but the idea behind it." Human fusion technology had transformed worlds across the galaxy. Previously energy-poor planets flourished with new industries. Earth and its colonies experienced unprecedented prosperity as the center of a technological renaissance. The Prometheus reactors had been just the beginning. Once freed from resource scarcity, species that had been enemies for centuries found new grounds for cooperation. Later that day, thousands gathered for the official opening ceremony of the cooperative headquarters. Ships from all member species formed an honor guard around the station. Admiral Rodriguez stood at attention as Secretary Green approached the podium. Behind her stood representatives from every cooperative species, former victims of tribute now standing as equals. 5 years ago, Green began, Earth faced a choice that countless species before us had faced: submit to demands for tribute, or face isolation and possible destruction. The crowd was silent, remembering. "We chose a different path," she continued. "Not submission, not conflict, but transformation. We shared what we had learned rather than hoarding it. We built connections rather than walls." She gestured to the view of space beyond the station. "Today, we don't just celebrate human ingenuity or the Prometheus project. We celebrate a galaxy that's beginning to move beyond scarcity and domination toward cooperation and shared prosperity." As the ceremony ended, Rodriguez found himself standing next to Trenvorith, the auxiliary diplomat who had first helped them. "Your people changed everything," the auxiliary said quietly. "The old council stood for 20,000 years. No one imagined it could change." "We didn't set out to change the galaxy," Rodriguez replied. "We just refused to accept that exploitation was the only way forward." Trenvorith's inner eyelids blinked in what Rodriguez now recognized as a smile. Sometimes, the greatest revolutions begin with a simple refusal. As night fell on the station, the stars seemed brighter somehow, lighting a galaxy forever changed by humanity's reply. Not with weapons or surrender, but with innovation and hope, a gift that no one could take away.